The WCBL is alive and in very good shape and has all of their team's best interests in collective approach to the league growth. And all of the teams are here this weekend, excited to get on with the 2026 season.
Welcome to episode 365 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. This is the 2025 season finale, and first off, a big thank you to everyone for your patience in waiting for this last show of the year. My family and I thought it'd be a perfect time to catch the bug that's been going around, and despite my best efforts, I'm still not at 100%, so I apologize now for being a little stuffed up. Hopefully it's not coming across too badly, and as they say, on with the show. We'll start with the news world, and there's been no shortage of news. Not that we ourselves like being a part of it, but it is an honor and a privilege to be named the Baseball Canada Bob Elliott Media Recognition Award winner. It's something that came completely out of left field, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it a little bit. We don't do this for awards and accolades, but it is rewarding to be thought of in this way. Thanks to Baseball Canada and Bob Elliott for the recognition, and to everyone who's reached out in the last day or so. Head to our websites for more on the award and my lengthy list of thank yous, including to Ian for being the best baseball partner in crime, my family for always being game to go on baseball adventures, and to everyone who has been a guest or listened to any episode of this show. In other news, Calgary's Michael Soroka has a new home. He hit the free agent market, and the Arizona Diamondbacks have signed him to a one-year deal worth $7.5 million with some bonuses to tack on. Soroka split last season between Washington and the Chicago Cubs, going a combined 3-9 with a 4.52 ERA in 22 games, striking out 95 and 81-plus innings of work. A couple of familiar faces are switching teams after the MLB Rule 5 draft. The Boston Red Sox have claimed longtime Okotoks Dogs product Matt Lloyd after a couple of solid seasons in the St. Louis organization, while former Moose Jaw Miller Express hurler Travis Kuhn was claimed by the Toronto Blue Jays after he spent the last couple of years in Detroit's system. On the commitment front, there's been a lot, including a big one with Dogs Academy product Caden Armitage signing on with Indiana University. Dogs teammate and friend of the show Quincy Jenkins has signed on with Iowa Western Community College, and Jack Thompson rolls on with Odessa College. Over at AHP, Theo Shipton heads to Garden City Community College, and Jack Smitzel gets a scholarship to Crowder Community College. Over at Weber, Jacob Murphy heads to Mayville State University, and in Saskatchewan, Carson Ziatek of Going Yard goes to McCook Community College. Prep Baseball has looked into its crystal ball to look at the top prospects ahead of the 2027 MLB draft, and a couple of names locally pop up. Callum Anderson of Vauxhall is ranked 84th overall, while AHP's Gabe Fink sits in 213th. And we'll wrap things up in the Western Canadian Baseball League for a couple of coaching announcements. In Moose Jaw, Eric Marriott has taken a job with the Ottawa Titans of the Frontier League and will not be back in 2026. Longtime assistant Mike Gonzalez moves up to become head coach, while friend of the show Jeff Freeborn has been named pitching coach. In Regina, the Red Sox have announced Ry Pathakos has inked an extension with the reigning Harry Hallis Trophy winners, and some late-breaking news on Wednesday as the Okotoks Dogs have announced promotions for Tyler Hollick and Val Heldobler. Hollick will take on the role of president of baseball operations, while Heldobler takes the reins as general manager. Speaking of the WCBL, it held its AGM a couple of weekends ago in Red Deer and Sylvan Lake. I was in attendance for day one, while our Ian Wilson was there all 3 days. Lots talked about, but no major headlines to speak of. Great to get a sense as to the direction of the league heading into 2026. So let's talk about it all now with Ian. Welcome, good sir, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Joe. Thanks for having me back.
We are now a couple of weeks removed from the WCBL's AGM, and I'll give you my thoughts in a second, but I want to get your interpretation of the 3 days. What was maybe one of your key takeaways, albeit I know full well that you can't get into some of the details going on behind the scenes in camera, quote unquote?
Yeah, I think you have all representatives from all 12 teams gathering at that event for the winter meetings in AGM, and a real commitment just to improve the league as a whole, to boost the sponsorship dollars that come in, find ways to improve ticketing and website and social media and things like that, get more fans in the stands, and just an improved approach to 2026. One of the things that stood out was really the funding and the time and the overall investment in umpiring. And I was privy to some, and you were as well, some very interesting discussions on umpiring and how they interact with the coaches, and some frank discussions that are just great to hear in terms of, trying to get everyone kind of rowing in the same direction on what umpiring should look like, and some of the challenges they face and things like that. And so that was incredibly interesting, and also just good to see that they take that really seriously, and they're trying to make improvements constantly with that.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I kind of took away, you mentioned sort of the fine tuning. It's not like you need to go and blow things up by any stretch of the imagination. And I really like the conversations around whether it's the ticketing side of things, and that was really a kind of an interesting conversation around making it more frictionless for every fan, so that they don't have to worry about missing out on tickets, for example, or they were talking about how many fans buy season tickets but maybe miss out on 30 or 40% of the games. How are you better serving your customers, that kind of stuff. So there's some really interesting conversations from that point. And then the other point I kind of took away from it is there was almost like a desire to, I'll call it WHLize things. There's a little bit more of a conversation around fine-tuning of social media. And I know this all like really small insider baseball sort of stuff, but just around the policies and procedures around what to post, how to post, what pictures to use, how, like all those little things that kind of make the experience for the average person who's just sort of seeing the content, not necessarily living and dying with all the content, make it more interactive and make it better for the average person, so that they maybe go, hey, maybe I need to check out a game. It was really an interesting conversation, and especially given that you've got 12 very unique voices around the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there are some, well, first of all, they did adopt a new social media policy, just making sure, again, that each team and each coach and player and team representative is putting their best foot forward on social media, so that it's good to see them making some advancements there. And and regarding the Western Hockey League, there are some shared markets there, right? Mm-hmm. And certainly some markets where the same group that owns the WCBL team owns the WHL team. Yeah. So that voice is at the table. I think there is still some recognition that these are not apples to apples in terms of the product, but there are some either synergies that can be realized, or just a recognition about, hey, how do you do this in your league, and how does this work? And some of it can just be very logistics based, in terms of broadcasting or things like that. So it's great to kind of just see them, let's learn, let's adapt. What can we apply something from that league that works well in ours? Or, we've looked at that, but that just isn't a good fit for the WCBL. So I do think there can be some crossover there. And it's good to have some of those voices at the table.
Yeah, and not only that, but I think some best practices too, right? When it comes to the social media side, or whether it comes from the communication side or the ticketing side or the merchandise side. Like there's a lot of different vantage points and opportunities for all the organizations to learn and either develop them or make them adaptive to their own personal needs and wants and desires to fit their markets properly. So I thought that was really cool. You mentioned the umpiring thing, and I thought it was really an interesting back and forth. Rob Allen, who is sort of the guru in terms of checking over game-to-game development of umpires. There's a lot of new umpiring crews and members this past year. There was some points of consternation, we'll call it that, between from some teams in terms of some of the consistencies and that kind of stuff, which I don't think is necessarily something that's unique to the WCBL by any stretch, because every league, I mean, MLB sees that as, where's the strike zone today? Okay, you've got to adapt, right? And so there was that conversation had, but I found it interesting, and I want you to elaborate more on the training piece, because Rob really goes in depth and is making sure that these newer umpires or these younger umpires are getting the feedback they need to be better every game, so that by the end of the season, they are really hitting their top stride.
Yeah, they do have camps for young and emerging umpires where they go into great detail just about how they call games. They've got situations where maybe the younger umpire on home plate will have an earpiece in, and the more senior official will be on the walkie-talkie, just kind of, or whatever they call it. It's probably not a walkie-talkie.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching Stranger Things too much lately, but but is communicating in real time with the younger umpire just about, okay, what did you see there, and why did you call it that way, or all those kinds of things, and also using video much more than has ever happened, right? Even hearing, I think Rob himself admitted, I thought this was a strike, and then he went back and looked at the tape, and he was like, "Yeah, I blew that one. That didn't work. That didn't work the way I thought it did." And also just explanations from Chris Hartley on where he's setting up on the plate, and maybe where there are places where the angle that you're at, you cannot see certain parts quite as well as other parts of the plate, right? Mm-hmm. So, I like hearing, I hope I'm not outing too much of that conversation, but it's good to hear that some of those frank discussions, and hopefully, and I think just laying the groundwork for that relationship between coach and umpire to be respectful. And I think there has to be some give and take there in a positive way of knowing that, okay, like, hey, we all make mistakes. The umpires make mistakes. The coaches make mistakes. The players make mistakes. Let's not get too egregious about how we're, addressing those with each other. So, we'll see how next season goes. I know there's still times when umpires and coaches butt heads and they don't see eye to eye, and that can be a stress point and a flashpoint. But I think they're putting in the work to reduce that as much as they can. And there is, you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's still an umpiring shortage in this province. Yeah. So it's hard, it's hard to attract and retain people who want to do that kind of work. And you imagine doing your job and you got people heckling you or yelling at you from 5 feet away, right? So it's an interesting job, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And I it's interesting too. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I will say that the managers who were previously hitters see the strike zone a lot different than the pitchers who turned into managers see the strike zone. We'll call it that. Cam Williams and Tyler Hollick. Did I say that out loud? No, it's all in good fun. And the other part too is they can all walk away from that, and it's not like you were pointing out. There was nothing like angry. They weren't shaking fists at one another. They're just like, hey, we want to be able to understand where this is at, so we can convey this to our players and that kind of stuff. So it's good knowledge base, and it's good to, especially and it was pointed out during the AGM, is this is a development league for players, for coaches, and yes, even for umpires. Like, this isn't something, it's not Major League Baseball where you have, robo umps and that kind of stuff. Like, this is all development too. There's, like, to your point, there's going to be mistakes made. And this year there was a couple, of course there were. There's always going to be some. And so it's just a matter of minimizing that and fine tuning that. And I think Rob and Chris did a really good job of showcasing why this league is heading in the right direction. So really great rundown there of the AGM from the WCBL's perspective. And for more on that, Ian and I are going to take a quick break, and here's what Kevin Kvame had to say to our own Ian Wilson here on Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast.
Kevin, just wrapping up the AGM winter meetings for the WCBL. Just give me some broad strokes on what you saw in 2025 for the Western Canadian Baseball League.
I think the league continues to grow and learn from our franchises about how we're going to continue to move the needle forward. along the lines of our digital engagement. That's growing by leaps and bounds each year. The addition of the Flow Sports deal last year was a very positive experience for the league. We had maintained some key sponsorships in the league. So all of that stuff's growing. And we're excited to be having a new director of corporate sponsorship be on board probably by January. So that's exciting news coming out of the AGM. So lots of positivity around the meetings this weekend, and it's full steam ahead for the 2026 season.
There's always some challenges along the way. Maybe just walk me through some of the areas you're, just kind of looking to navigate or improve or things like that.
Well, I mean, everybody is probably aware of the biggest challenge that we've been experiencing the last little while is the slow growth of the Energy City model. We're excited to hopefully see that be coming to a finish line here, in the coming months. The ownership group there is committed to seeing all the games played at their facility. There's a little bit of work left to be done to get the field playable, and then some other key components that they want to get in place to allow as many fans into the facility as they can. It's been a huge project for the league, not for the league, but for their ownership team, to get it from the forest that it was to the massive, impressive structure that is growing there in Spruce Grove. So the delays have been frustrating for fans and for the league and for the ownership group too. So we understand that, but we reaffirmed our commitment to the Energy City team this weekend, and want him to get all of the pieces in place to make sure that games are there and fans are excited about getting into the new ballpark as soon as possible.
What are you excited about in 2026? What are you looking forward to? We've got an all-star game in a new location, a 2-day event. That's going to be one of the highlights, obviously. What else? Maybe speak to that and things that are exciting.
Even just the start of the season, every season is exciting. New teams, new players on every team, new opportunities for teams to better themselves, new opportunities for rivals to continue their long-standing battles on the field. It's impressive the amount of knowledge and energy in WCBL winter meetings that are teamwork. It's all about the teamwork at the league level during these meetings, but then you convert it to a real competitive spirit for all of the teams come the season, and just seeing that and the amount of fans and promotions that we've come up with in the past few years is probably the thing you look forward to the most. Just making sure the season gets underway and then watching it unfold.
One of the interesting side notes, or I find it interesting, is you've got Rawlings on a 3-year deal, I believe, for a new official baseball. Walk me through that process. How do you get there? And tell us a little bit about the new baseball that players and pitchers can look forward to working with.
Well, I don't think any, there's some really good baseballs out there. But in the end, I think that if I was to handicap it, I really think that going away from the diamond baseball that we've had for the last 3 years and back to a Rawlings baseball really in the end came down to the capacity of Rawlings in Canada to be a great baseball player, and the Rawlings partnership is for a minimum of 3 years and brings the best ball in baseball, the ROML, which is the Major League Spec ball, back to the WCBL games. And I don't think the players are going to notice a lot of difference between that and the ball we've had. It'll be as good or better than that. And we're happy to have Rawlings back with us in a much more cooperative and engaged fashion. So, it was great to get their proposal this fall and to be able to to accept it and have the governors give us the complete go-ahead this weekend that Rawlings is back in our family.
Outstanding. Any closing thoughts, just as we turn the page on 2025, look ahead to 2026, anything just for fans of the league? The
I can just tell them that, the WCBL is alive and in very good shape, and has all of their team's best interests in collective approach to the league growth, and all of the teams are here this weekend, excited to get on with the 2026 season. So we can't wait for opening day, which I believe is May 28th.
Yeah, absolutely.
5 markets and 10 teams on opening night.
Can't wait. Well, thank you for your time, Kevin.
All right. Thanks, Ian.
Back here on Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast, the season finales. We take a look back at 2025 and look ahead to 2026. Ian Wilson back with us. We'll shift gears now away from the WCBL, or maybe we'll stay with the WCBL depending on his answer to my next question. Ian, when you look back on the last 12 months, what is going to stand out to you?
Oh, there's always a few things. On the geez, I ready to break out an Old Lang Syne after that intro there about the year end. But on a more melancholic note, we saw Foothills Stadium finally meet the wrecking ball back in February, and that this is certainly that's not breaking news, right? Like that had been percolating for a while. We knew it was coming down, but there was a lot of dull shock, I think I'd call it, just in terms of seeing that happen and seeing that come down and knowing all the memories. And like you and I have talked about that Pacific Coast League era in Alberta, and kind of how we're like, it's really tucked far in that in the rearview mirror now, right? And even the Independent League time in Calgary and Edmonton. So that kind of drove that home even more. And then the one day I did go there to snap some photos and just kind of take it in, Russ Parker was walking around, so I interviewed him then. So that was it was tough, but it's also you're also trying to turn the page. You understand the move and the reasons behind it, but yeah, I think that's a place that touched a lot of lives over the decades. And when there's no clear replacement for that facility, I think it stings even more. So that was the Debbie Downer side of things. And, I guess you could call it the hope springs eternal, because the Calgary Bucks ended up playing there after the demolition. They did end up erecting a makeshift diamond. So try as you might to kill that stadium, there's still baseball that takes place there in whatever form. So I don't think that's going to last very long, but it's giving its last gasp at that site as long as it can. On the flip side, on the positive things, I do have a Western Canadian Baseball League related answer, and that was not so much the regular season, but the playoffs of the league were phenomenal. And coming off 2 years in a row, really, where there was just amazing playoff performances and twists and turns. And, I was looking back at some of my coverage over the year, and I was actually pretty proud of just covering those playoffs and what I was able to put together from all of those series.
Yeah.
Like there's things, sparks flying all over the league. And, so it's, that was one of the highlights, was just watching. And as you know, like just a little more inside baseball on that, the last few years I've done like a extended kind of feature on the WCBL champion, which, for 3 years in a row and 4 out of 5 was the Okotoks Dogs. And, even when those series got tight, even when they went to game 3 and even when they were close late in innings, hello, Connor Croson hitting a walk-off championship homer, I still had this underlying sense that the Dogs were going to find a way to win, which kind of made it easier to prep those feature stories and do a longer read on them. This year was so chaotic.
Yeah.
I actually did start some features like that I kind of had to scrap and leave on the drawing room floor. start all over again. And so it didn't lead to as long of stories, but yeah, I covered it off as best I could.
I couldn't agree more with you when it comes to that WCBL final. And I think a lot of that stems from maybe the unknown, right? Because to your point, Okotoks 3 years in a row, and now you've got so many different it's almost like the World Series between the Dodgers and Blue Jays to a certain extent, because every game seemed to have a different element of surprise attached to it. We'll call it that. Like even in game one of that series, Sylvan, I think it was Michael Quick, stole home, right? Like you had some weird, crazy happenstance things happen during the course of game one, and then that continues into game two in Sylvan Lake, where you think, okay, the Gulls have a legit shot at winning this thing at home, and Regina comes back and fairy tales their way from start to finish to a championship. And it was just such a fascinating year to watch, and an emotional year, I think, to watch from the West perspective. Sylvan Lake finally gets that monkey off their back. Regina, they had a death of a teammate early on in the season, and then a few players leave in July, and they're the underdogs all the way through the playoffs. And it just everything. There were so many different crazy storylines attached to this year's championship that I couldn't help but be romantic about baseball to a certain extent in regards to the championship. But even throughout the season, and to kind of dovetail off of the original question I asked you about what I'm going to remember it for, I'm going to remember it for the action on the field. Obviously was second to none. Every time I seemed to watch a game, regardless of level, it seemed to be a lot of fun. But there's one moment, and I'm going to write about it in an upcoming story, an upcoming editorial about this. There's a moment after the Okotoks Sylvan Lake series in game two, after game two, Aiden Macris and Logan Grant hug at home plate. And it was that moment no different than watching Eric Sabrowski get called up to the big leagues and finally make his MLB appearance. No different than watching Connor Croson go full circle and hit a walk-off home run in Game 3 of the championship series. There's that moment of full circle for me that I just can't help but get kind of misty-eyed about to a certain extent, because here we are watching two young dudes who we've been covering for years now, and they've known each other for so long, and just in that moment, the humanity of it made me go, oh man, like here's all the feels, right? And you did a phenomenal job of capturing the moment in a couple of photos as well, but it was just that feeling of like there's something real special in Alberta baseball and in Saskatchewan baseball right now that we get to have a front row seat to, that 2025, I'm going to look back on and go, man, like Sydney Berry and Madison Willen got picked in the the Women's Professional Baseball League draft, and Tristan Peters got called up to the big leagues, and Rural Roots Classic makes it kind of come full circle for a few people with Oyen and company, and there's just so many cool little full circle moments for me that 2025 is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I can't agree more with you. And that embrace that we were, able to bear witness to. There's so much storyline wise you could go with on that. I mean, these two rivals, Sylvan Lake finally, there's the bigger picture, Sylvan Lake finally beating the Dogs in a playoff round. But just at a personal level, Aiden Macris, all he had to do to get back to baseball and be in the sport, and Logan Grant, I talked to him after, and that was hard. I was getting a little choked up talking to him because he was pretty emotional after that loss, and also a lot of I'm not sure where I'm going to next in terms of a baseball career, if there is one to go to, right? And we've met his parents, and we met Aiden's girlfriend, and like you get to know these people a little bit better, and you see those moments, and those are like that's just one that we're mentioning.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of hugs and handshakes and high fives between teams throughout these playoffs. In some of it in Sylvan Lake, some of it in Moose Jaw, some of it in Regina, right? That we're not always seeing, and it's just you're right. It touches on the human aspect of sport and the friendships and the bonds and the rivalries, and they all come together in a magical way. And One thing I should mention, and you touched on it, was the Blue Jays run to the World Series, and that was. I am, cards on the table. You know this. I'm a Mariners fan, so
a little bitter, but he's okay with it.
Yeah, there was a lot of hurt after that ALCS for me because you see Kyle Raleigh have this amazing true MVP caliber season, and then you just you're like, this is going to happen? Are the Mariners actually going to get to a World Series? Nope. it's gonna end in a painful way. And then, and having said all that, yes, I got back on the Jays bandwagon in that World Series. And by the time they get to their own Game 7 and have their own painful moment, it's like, and the twists and turns of that game and that series, like possibly one of the best World Series ever. And you and I, the reason it's relevant in Alberta dugout stories and in our world is you see the interest in baseball just rise when you get something like that. And we will see that. People will talk about that. People, just like they talked about Joey Bats and his bat flip, and they talked about Josh Donaldson, and they talked about other playoff runs, or, even Justin Morneau referring to the Blue Jays winning the World Series in the 90s. Those things matter on a big scale and locally. So, and that was fun. I got to write about that as well. Hopefully I didn't have my, I didn't have my Mariners goggles on as I was writing that, but that was a fun, game and World Series to write about. So, what a year for baseball.
Absolutely. So now we turn the page and we look ahead to 2026, and there's a lot of storylines that are going to be coming up. I mean, you look at what the WCBL's got on tap. I mean, Kevin Kvame mentioned it in the interview about Energy City and what to expect out of Spruce Grove and the possibilities there. You talk about the improving play across the field there. I mean, we've talked about the Women's Pro Baseball League, and they're going to see their season start up. The college year, we just did the all college teams for Alberta and Saskatchewan, and man, the talent has been absolutely on and up stateside. CCBC is getting started in just a couple of months here. Like, what's one thing or one storyline or one topic in your eyes that you're really excited to see unfold in 2026?
Just one? Come on, that's not
I know.
fair.
It's like picking favorite children. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of things. You rattled off a lot of them, and a lot of those things I'll be really interested in seeing. I want to see this Women's Pro League. I want to see what that looks like. I want to see, we've seen in other sports where the women's game has taken off, and there's certain athletes that captivate, the average sports fan. I want to see if that's, we've got a similar thing cooking in baseball. I want to see some of the Alberta and Saskatchewan athletes, competing at this highest of levels. So that will be exciting and fun and special to watch. So I'm very curious about how that evolves and moves forward. I'm always, there's always that next wave of players that you want to crack through to the major leagues. It was awesome to see Tristan Peters get there this year. So I want to see, Matt Lloyd is one guy I'd love to see. That comes to mind that I would just love to see make it to the majors. He's been a very good professional player. He's just picked up by the Red Sox in that Rule 5 draft, which by my estimation probably makes it a little harder to get to the bigs. But who knows? Baseball's a funny game, and injuries can happen, trades can happen. I'll be cheering for him to break through, and any other athletes from Alberta, Saskatchewan, and who played in the WCBL. I'll be keeping an eye on that. Always fun to watch the draft, see which players in our world kind of end up getting selected, and and just we've got Mike Soroka's starting with the Diamondbacks. He's getting a fresh start there. Curious to see. Hopefully he can stay healthy, and he had flashes of his what he could do this last year, and I'm curious to see how that goes. And Eric Zabrowski, man, Eric Zabrowski too. Like when he shakes off injuries and he's ready to go, he's a beast, and he's a fun guy to watch and to cheer for, and he gets emotional out there, and I love it. So those are just some of the guys that we'll be keeping an eye on.
We might actually
sorry. the World Baseball Classic.
I was just about to say, I'm like, you set that up on a tee for me to go, and we're going to get to watch more Eric Sabrowski, likely, as he suits up for Canada, which is something that he's really looking forward to, amongst other things, a.k.a., hey, congratulations to the Sabrowskis, as they are expecting their first child, by the way, in March. Yeah, we might see that. I'll be really genuinely curious to see what the Canadian roster looks like this year, because I get the feeling if Michael Soroka is allowed to pitch, the big question mark around him is arm health, and is Arizona willing to lend him to Canada for a little while? Adam Macko might have a shot at cracking that roster as a depth reliever for Canada, because they were a really old pitching rotation in 2023. 2026, a lot of those guys are gone now, so, right? Like, there's no Andrew Albers to fall back on. So you got an Adam Macko who's possibly in there. Does Matt Lloyd have an in for maybe a bench position there? Is Tristan Peters on that roster? I think so, especially when you look at a Denzel Clark who's going to start in center field, likely for Canada. Why wouldn't you have another defensive specialist out there? There's a few options. Damiano Palmigiani is another guy who I think he had an off year in 25, but there's a possibility because he's been there before. He's had a taste of it. He went down to South America to play some ball during the fall and found his home run stroke again. He had a couple of home runs in 10 games, so maybe there's an opportunity there. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. But yeah, there's some exciting things happening. Ian Wilson.
Two more that I have to mention that are going to be exciting ones that we've already got circled on our calendars. The All-Star game for the Western Canadian Baseball League moves from Okotoks to Saskatoon. Really excited to see what kind of spin the Berries do. Their own thing, and they present things in their own way. This time it's a 2-day weekend, so we're gonna, that's the full weekend. We're going to get the full weekend experience. I can't wait to see what that looks like.
Yep.
And you just interviewed Justin Morneau about the Morneau Cup and the road to Okotoks. Great interview. To our listeners, if they haven't listened to it, go back a few weeks and give it a listen, because it's a great interview. And that whole tournament, that whole idea, that concept, just to see it in action for its first year, to see 16 of the top academy programs duking it out for that under 19 supremacy. It's going to be great. It's going to be exciting to see. And I hope we get some fan engagement. Okotoks always does things top notch, so I'm sure we'll get a good amount of fan engagement for that as well. And yeah, that's just going to be fun to watch. It's going to be like its own future showcase, but more focused on gameplay than individual play. And I can't wait to see those teams battle it out.
Yeah, add that into the mix with a national championship in Saskatoon, a national championship again in Fort McMurray in 2026. And our calendars have filled up really, really fast. And I don't think Ian and I can be ever as excited as we are right now to get things rolling and turn the channel and turn the page on this winter and get ready for baseball season in 2026. It's going to be a fun one. It has been a fantastic 2025. Ian Wilson, I tip my cap to you on a job well done. Kudos. Take a little bit of a break, and we'll see you again in the new year.
Merry Christmas, Joe. Happy New Year. I hope you and the family have a great holiday season. Same goes for our listeners. I hope they just enjoy the season and enjoy time with their families.
Thanks again to Ian Wilson and Kevin Kvame for joining us this week. And thanks to all of you for downloading and listening, as well as your patience as I fought this bug. That's going to do it for the 2025 season of Alberta Dugout Stories podcast. Thank you again so much for checking us out, whether it was once or for every step along the way. It was a banner year once again for our websites and for the show, and we couldn't do it without all of you. We can't wait to bring you even more episodes and more stories in 2026, so make sure to check us out on socials, as we'll keep you updated on the season premiere release date as soon as it becomes available. Or you could always subscribe to the show on your app, as that'll make sure new episodes end up straight in your inbox. As as always, a tip of the cap to our platinum supporters, the Okotoks Dogs, Under the Lights Sports and Entertainment, and the Western Canadian Baseball League for their generosity in helping us tell the game stories in our province. We also want to shout out all of our official sponsors, no matter the level, as their support has been integral in allowing us to keep growing every year. For more on our tremendous teammates, head to albertadugoutstories.com/supporters. Until next time, thank you for all of your support online, on social, and on air of Alberta Dugout Stories. We'll see you all again in 2026.